continuing on now, and I'm going to tighten up the drawing in certain areas and leave the painting unfinished in some other areas. So I'm going to be focused now on that particular task, and I'm working around the face area. Not going to be long enough. Again, up and down, abrading the paper slightly. It's all right. There we go. And then down here, and with that happening, then this is more like this. Snarl. Right, so that's there. So then now this needs to be light. I'm redrawing where the sofa hits the arm here, and I put a little L for light rather than wood. That's all right. You have to make those sorts of corrections. It's a little tricky because this arm right on top here, and so we need a little more volume there. And then it comes down this way. It's just a puzzle. And I have the top of the settee here digging into her arm. That's an orange. Ooh, hard. I'm going to leave that and come back. Okay, so then this new line is about here. And I'm replacing these knees a little bit. This knee is now slightly over. I'm gonna, at some point you have to, every time Robin comes back, she's gonna be slightly different. There's just no help for that. I mean, she's better than most for sure. But at some point you have to commit what you're gonna live with. And so I just haven't quite made that commitment yet, so I'm changing my drawing slightly to accommodate the bit of change that I have experienced here. All right, and then that upper thigh is like here. There, okay, so that there. And that knee is way out here. Kind of like this. All right, coming on down. You see, this was a bit of a troubled area over here, and so I've left it now. Maybe my subconscious will adjust it while I do some other things. I mean, you can worry yourself to death over issues, and I don't want to do that. This is still a bit of a lark. A good time, and so not to worry too much. I'm going to restate the far side of her dress again. I'm going to use a nice bright green so everybody will be sure to see it. Little dramatic fun, and I like that because we use that green, I think, to soften the red throughout, so it is a component of that dress, even though we don't really see it as green in the dress. So I'm mixing Rambling Rose with that Viridian again. A little more rose, a little more white, just a touch of yellow ochre, warm it up slightly. Okay. Down to that line, a little more angle. I usually use a straight dowel stick when I work, and I didn't get that out, but it helps me determine angles and that kind of thing. I can't paint without it, though I've been painting for years. It seems funny to rely on my tools that way, but that's the way it is. Put a little bit of a heel in there for her foot, and then this foot is nicely off the page like so. Now the Viridian and the Rambling Rose without any yellow ochre make a very cool, just almost a charcoal. It's just so cool. And I see some of that over on Robin's left on the dress itself. So I'm going to just kind of put that in there where I see it. It's about that cool. A little bit over here. Now, because this is a story about a painting that happens to have a pink dress, I'm not going to overdo the pink on that. It would be easy to do. This is all scrubby dry brush. It looks like pastel. And in fact, when I put a figure painting in a show, I often put a disclaimer in it and saying, now what looks like pastel is really dry brush watercolor and gouache. And people look at a painting that they're not familiar with this process and they'll say, gosh, what is that? Is that acrylic or is it? No, they'll say it's pastel. I'll say, no, it's gouache. Because it's just the most beautiful, versatile medium. And so now we need some light under there. We need just a plain old gray. So let's try. Some orange and blue. Good old standby. I remember years ago, more than 30 years ago, I'm remembering now how the trouble I had mixing grays. And I could never get it, because I would never put enough blue in the neutral mix. I have a few things figured out in my mature years. All right. So then we come on up here like this, and like so, and then that becomes, now we have that descending. It's too much of a curve. The thing that's beautiful about the settee and that far wooden rim, it starts out as one surface, and by the time it's curved around, I now have two. It's just transformed itself. I have a lot of lines here. I have to get rid of some of them. All right, so this comes down like this, it curves up like this, and then that is there like that, and that is like that. Behind, on top, in front. Boy, tricky. Wrist, if we had one, if we had a bracelet, it would be there. And then this, okay. Bracelet here if we had one. Palm here, knuckles rather. Mitt and hand for now. We'll find fingers later if there's time. Okay, a little stiff, that's all right. So that's all right now. We're going to come in here. There. I just set the charcoal down in the paint. Finding the edge of the upholstery a little bit there. This is the skipper that I've worn into a wedge, so I'm going to go back to this now. Big brushes for big spaces. And I'm going to get a little bit of light, not as bright light as this up on her chest, but some light and a little rosier than that. Let's see, in there, just a touch of rose. I try not to mix more than 2 or 3 colors. I actually try to mix 2. And if I can't get it, possibly alter with a 3rd. And if I still can't get it, start over. Where's that green? This is shadow in here. A little bit of more green in that. A little more light than we had. Just lay it on. I'm covering up a lot of those charcoal marks that we had on there. Just smear it around with that skipper. You can see how it has come that I've splayed my brush, scrubbing like that. I always figure I can replace this brush one day, and although I've had it 12 years. So. Now there's some reflected warmth underneath that, underneath her knee. I'm going to get back in there and put a little of that in. And that leg's going to come off the page. And I have this hand yet. Maybe I'll just draw that in. Decisions. Getting rid of some of that charcoal in there. Just a little bit. All right, and this hand here. Grab the Workhorse, good brush. It's a nice size. This is number 6. It comes down. Now that hand has changed a little bit. Don't, Robin, that's fine. Not to worry. So I'm going to redraw that eventually here. And dark. All right, let's take a little break.